Fall of Cybertron Blaster is the only toy I've ever tried from this line. I've picked him up a few months ago and honestly, at first, I just didn't know if I was really into him. My first impressions was that he was fairly underwhelming, boring even. I thought this because at the time I was a fool, a charlatan, because after having him on my desk for a while, I can say that this is a really fun toy and it offers something a little bit different. Now, looking at his robot mode, it's so far so Blaster. Of course, this version is a pre-Earth Cybertronian mode, so there are a few concessions to be made, but if you're looking for a Voyager-sized version of this lad, you could do worse than this. It's definitely a pleasing sculpt and it's got nice proportions, and those peaks of yellow work beautifully against the reds and the greys. Now, like all blasters should have, there's a switch on his shoulder that opens up the compartment on his chest. His left hand actually has a moulded in index finger, should Blaster want to press the button himself, and he does! First thing you'll notice if you're up to date with your shapes is that the opening to this compartment is circular instead of the usual rectangular one we're used to. That's because we're on Cybertron, mate. They don't use tapes, they use big wheels of cheese to store their data. Steeljaw comes with the set, and there's a fun little gimmick to be had here. Pulling out Blaster's backpack, we can see this funny plunger, okay? Give it a push while Steeljaw's in there, and in theory, he should come flying out, transforming as he hits the ground. This doesn't work as often as it should, but when it does, oh, it's as satisfying as a good long cry. Steeljaw himself is guaranteed to transform every time he hits the floor though, because a small shift in room temperature is enough to trigger the delicate mechanisms on this boy. Until you get the hang of it, putting him back into disc mode will transform your day into an adventure. Transformation's surprisingly fun considering he turns into a loaf on wheels. That backpack plunger folds up nicely and it slides up front to accompany the very nice wheels. The whole process is quick and fairly memorable. It's rare that a Cybertronian mode impresses me because they're usually just licensed to get away with any old rubbish, but this is great to mess around with. Apparently the seat at the top can fit a Diaclone figure, but God knows who has any of those. This looks like an alien vehicle, a big communications van that has to traverse a battlefield. I really do dig it. With multiple places to store his electro scrambler rifle, FOC Blaster is great to pick up and play with for a wee bit. I'm tempted to see if I can get a few more of his cheese wheels because there's definitely room in there for another one. Maybe I'll get the Soundwave version too? Or maybe I'll just forget the whole thing and play with this guy instead.